The paper that we'll be presenting today is The Effects of Music Therapy on Young Adults in Penang with Suicidal Ideation. A brief introduction. I'm Joyce and I'm from the School of Arts, and my team members Hannah and Prisha are from the School of the Social Science. So let's move to the introduction. First of all, many research has been done on skills to address the issues presented in an inpatient music therapy group, such as depression, symptoms management, or poor coping skills. However, not many research has been done on how music therapy might allow the patient to process feelings related to suicide and how it would go about broaching the topic with patients if it seems relevant to their treatment. Initial investigations revealed that few music therapy resources address this problem in group setting. Thus, this research fills the gap about the clinical nature of suicidal ideation and the role of how music therapy play in the treatment. So, the purpose of this research is to deepen understanding and the level of comfort of processing suicidal thoughts in clinical settings. So, there are the few guiding principles in the literature that describe music therapy with psychiatric patients who exhibit suicidal ideation. The effects of music therapy are unknown in group treatment in such condition. Since the design of this study will allow us to unfold naturally, the findings will be supported with a theoretical orientation that serves to give a possible explanation of suicidal ideation as a treatment factor.
Our research covers two main themes, which include suicide in Malaysian adolescents and music therapy in mental health. Within suicide in Malaysian adolescents, our literature review covers global statistics, suicide in Malaysia, and specifically suicide among Malaysian adolescents. Within music therapy in mental health, we review and understand existing research on effectiveness of music therapy. We will then address the research gaps within both these themes of research. On a global scale, the World Health Organization reported that close to 800,000 people die to suicide every year, and 79% of global suicide occurs in low and middle income countries, making Malaysia an important country to understand suicide behavior. Varnick in 2012 reported a review on global suicide data for the period of 1950 to 2009 from the World Health Organization database. In his review, he reported that suicide has been an ongoing issue in many parts of the world. For example, it was found that in Lithuania, they had a suicide rate of 61.3 for males and 10.4 for females per 100,000 inhabitants. What was notable in his research was that while suicide rates in Europe were high, Asia showed an alarming increase in suicide rate. The countries that contributed the most to the numbers of suicide in the world were China, India, Russia, USA, Japan, and South Korea. Multiple studies have found that the onset of most mental health issues, including suicide ideation and suicidal behavior, occurs during the transition from puberty to young adolescence. In his review, Varnick identified that in Southeast Asia, 15 to 29-year-olds were identified to be the most vulnerable groups to suicide behavior. The National Health Ministry of Malaysia reported that mental illness cases among 16 to 19-year-olds Malaysians in the year 2015 was at 29.2%, which is an estimated of 4.2 million people. In 2007, Chen reported that 312 out of about 4,000 Malaysian teenagers have suicidal ideation, and 4.6 of them had attempted suicide at least once in the past 12 months. In terms of music therapy, it was found that music therapy has been an effective method in suicide aversion. Specifically, Albornoz found that music therapy led to statistically significant greater improvements in psychologist-rated depression when compared with regular treatment program among patients who showed depressive symptoms. Additionally, multiple studies have found music therapy to be beneficial in elevating mood and reducing stress. However, it is notable that almost all of this existing literature on music therapy has been conducted in Western countries, which brings us to some of the important gaps our research attempts to address in our research study. In our study, the effects of music therapy on young adults in Penang with suicidal ideation, we address some of the key gaps within this research field. This includes the lack of research looking into suicide behavior in Malaysia. The World Health Organization cautioned that most of Malaysia's data on suicide were either unavailable, unusable, or lacked in reliability. This is due to the fact that suicide is severely underreported here due to the criminalization of suicide under Malaysian law. Additionally, there is a significant gap in the reviews conducted to assess the effectiveness of mental health intervention techniques and programs in Malaysia. While there is a large number of evidence for the effectiveness of music therapy, almost all of this research is conducted in the western part of our world, making it difficult to understand if the same results apply to the Asian population, specifically Malaysians. Therefore, we will now address the purpose of our research.
So, the study focuses on music therapy as a treatment modality in a psychiatric inpatient settings with individuals exhibiting suicidal ideation. So, the purpose of this study is to gain an insight into the role that music therapy plays in treatment of people with suicidal ideation. So, subtopics that were investigated include the reaction of music therapy in group settings and the perceived value to the group in relation to the overall treatment and a possible indication for the use of music therapy with this population. So the three motivating forces for this area is to gain deeper understanding of the general treatment process and adding to the body of the music therapy knowledge, and also to examine the perceived effectiveness of the specific treatment options. So the research questions for this study are: what is the role of music therapy in the treatment of people with suicidal ideation? Number two, how do individuals with suicidal ideation experience group music therapy? And number three, how do participants believe that music therapy impacts their overall treatment?
Our approach for this study will be to use grounded theory. Grounded theory is named thus because it is a research design that is grounded or rooted in data. Let me explain. First, we will gather data related to our designated area of interest. We will do this by using open-ended questions and observation. It is a cyclical process because the data collection methods can evolve as the data is being collected. Analysis happens concurrently to data collection, but we wait until later to form our theories. The idea is to avoid bias and preconceived notions. The goal of grounded theory is to reach theoretical saturation, where as much data as possible has been collected and processed in pursuit of a final theory. So, the area of interest in this particular study is the effects of music therapy on young adults with suicidal ideation. Briefly, here are the target demographics for this study. We are looking for 10 young people, ages 18 to 24. They must currently be living in the state of Penang. We will accept any gender and any ethnicity. They must be currently displaying suicidal ideation risk per Beck scale for suicidal ideation. Now back to Joyce to talk about data preparation.
So this study is designed to include the participants' input through interviews and along with the researchers' observation. So these are the procedures that will be carried out. So for number one, the social worker will screen the potential participants for suicidal characteristic and refer appropriate patients to the researcher. And then moving on, the researcher will conduct an additional informal screening to determine if the patient meets the criteria of the study. And then number three, if the patient is appropriate for the study, the researcher will explain the procedure and purpose of the study. And then moving on, number four, upon receiving the consent, the patient will conduct included as the participant of the study, and then a session based on the treatment goals and chart review of the participant will be constructed before each session. And then moving on, the participants will be attending a 60-minute music therapy group per week. And the group, however, the group will or might change throughout the study as participants might be admitted or discharged. So the group size will never, exceed 4. So all sessions will, of course, be videotaped. Notes and thoughts, ideas, feelings will be reflected by the researcher after each session, and the videotapes will be reviewed after each sessions to clarify the reflective logs and consolidate learning from the music therapy groups. And then the data will be collected and then it will be reviewed too. The field data will be analyzed after every music therapy group and be recorded in the time log. So upon determination of the patient's discharge by the treatment team, one or two participants will be selected per week to interview in a private room. Interview will be audio tape for transcription and analysis. So a total of 5 participants will be interviewed and transcribed. So upon completion of all the interviews, it will be transcribed and it will be analyzed. So moving on the ethics. So it is apparent that our study sample is at risk population, and our methods and interventions must be extremely sensitive. So above all else, we are committed to doing no harm to our participants. So we only consider participants who have been cleared and recommended by a licensed practitioner. Before participants are enrolled, we will ensure that they understand and consent to the requirements and the format of this study. Participants will be closely monitored by a licensed practitioner during this study. So they are free to exit the study at any times and without any questions asked. So we will provide mental health resources to all participants with free of charge. So confidentially and respect, all names will be changed and all identified information will be kept private. All information included in the study will be cleared with the participant, and all notes will be kept in a single log cabinet, access to which is limited to the researchers only. So once the study is published, researchers will destroy all audio tapes of the sessions and interviews.
This concludes the summary of our proposal. But before we end this presentation, I would like to emphasize why this topic is so important. Here is a graphic detailing the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. They are the centerpiece of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. These goals exhibit what the participating nations view as the crucial issues of this generation. This massive vision for global peace, prosperity, and preservation can only be accomplished collectively. Not only that, but it falls to my generation, our generation, to own these goals and pursue them together. Our research topic focuses on goal number 3, good health and well-being, which seeks to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all and at all ages. One listed target for this SDG is to reduce by 1/3 premature mortality from non-communicable diseases through prevention, treatment, and promotion of mental health and well-being. A key indicator for the success of this target is reduced suicide mortality rate. So our research is just a small piece in a much larger puzzle. Suicide is a complicated and heavy topic, but we can do our part to normalize talking about mental health and seeking help. And we can do our due diligence to study different therapy options that we can offer to those who struggle with suicidal ideation. Thank you so much for your attention.